No, we can't hear you, Raven's Eye.
He's been playing. Right, we're live. Going through Buster.
Hey, let me just hold on. Let me just stop you here before you go any further, guys. You know, you said about the five-sided square. Just to clarify, so if you want to make a clarification now, because there are people in the chat that will probably jump all over that and try to make some kind of stupid video, retarded video about it. So
I'm a five-sided square earther.
You know, in order to clarify what you've just said, and you know, you might just need to back that up somehow.
Yeah, no problem. So the five-sided square is possible on a shape that...
A square on the surface of a sphere could have three sides,
five-sided square,
four sides, or five sides.
It probably has a more technical name for it, but
five-sided square.
It appears as though it's almost like
a square or a solid square.
A square. Five-sided square.
Just a square.
Five-sided square.
I got your numbers right here.
Five-sided square.
It's just as easy as 1, 2, 3.
Five-sided square.
You have to open your mind.
Three sides, four sides, or five sides.
Imagination is all you need.
Five-sided square.
Don't take advice from fools.
Five-sided square.
Everything that they say is in vain.
If you want to define a square is...
Never take advice from fools.
You could make a five-sided square.
What they do is in vain.
Before you go any further, guys, you know you said about the five-sided square. Just to clarify,
if you want to define a square is an object that has only 90-degree internal angle.
Actually, slightly random point, but if you're into math, there's a certain shape where you could make a five-sided square.
Give us the definition then of a square.
Five-sided square.
Everything is relative to you.
In between a solid square and a solid
Absolutely.
You just have to say it in generality.
Four sides or five sides.
Just like those straight lines are curving.
You could make a five-sided square.
Drive down the road, don't you ever swerve.
five-sided square.
I don't know.
Five-sided square.
It probably has a more technical...
All of this goes.
I'm a five-sided square earther.
Never take advice from fools.
Five-sided square.
Everything that they say is in vain.
But you can make a five-sided square with 90
Never
degrees.
take advice from fools.
Five-sided square earther.
Everything that they do is in vain.
Five-sided square earther.
Did he say a five-sided square, question mark?
Spherical access, and that is a good way of working out that we do indeed live on a globe.
Give us the definition of a square, please, people. Come on.
It's a lot more complicated than spherical,
Don't be stalling.
Five-sided square.
isn't it? Steph?
I'm a five-sided square earther.
Five-sided square.
I know the game that you're playing.
It's a lot more complicated than spherical.
I know exactly what's on your mind.
Five-sided square.
You got your playbook, it's alright.
Five-sided square is
Your
possible.
model dictates what you will find.
Five-sided square.
And I don't know.
If you put a flat piece of paper, well, it wouldn't be flat, you'd have to bend it,
All
obviously.
of this goes.
But you can make a five-sided square with 90
Take
degrees.
advice from fools.
But you can make a five-sided square with 90
Everything that
degrees.
they say is in vain.
Five-sided square.
Never take advice from fools. We all know what they do is in vain.
Five-sided square.
Square in spherical geometry could have three sides,
Five-sided square.
four sides, or five sides.
If you're into math, there's a certain shape
Five-sided square.
where you can make a five-sided square.
Just give us the definition of a square in spherical geometry.
I don't think that. What's the point?
It's really flat and level now.
Five-sided square. Five-sided square.
Yeah, so I had the same thing. I had to switch my input-output what I normally use.
And we are live. Hump Day. Welcome. Wait a minute. That was going wrong, wasn't it? I've done that. And we are live. Welcome. It's a Hump Day. We're having a bit of a flummox because Discord's had an update and our star of the show's having technical issues. He's not been prepared with his tiny screwdriver, despite being warned. So hopefully we'll get that sorted out soon. We'll hopefully hear. Welcome, Hump Day. We're going to give the usual geometric argument a break today, unless has he gone? Yeah, we did have somebody just in here, but just before talking about the geometric 2D, 3D, ridiculous geometric argument. But we're going to give a miss tonight, or we were. Ravens is going to be doing hopefully, a presentation on the beginnings of, because we've decided to give the globe a break. We don't want to be triggering them too much, talking about humps and drops, and it's too much for them. So we're going to switch Wednesdays to Trivium, or we're going to be sort of mixing the midweek Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday slots about geometry, logic, and obviously Trivium, which is the sort of foundations of what leads to, I don't know, I would call it the mental conception in word form of how to communicate, communicate efficiently through understandings of identity and how to formulate a logical argument and a presentation, and the presentation within the rhetoric, and how you manage to communicate that. It all comes together as a package called the Trivium. And what we're getting, Raven's going to be doing today is advanced simplicity, hopefully, fingers crossed. The advanced simplicity is to break it as base as possible. So at the beginning of understanding of all of this stuff is at the heart of a book from a bloke called Aristotle. And I'm not too sure about these being actual people. I think it would have been like an ethos of an age or something that's travelled through time, and I guess this is pure logic at that point. Very little emotion involved in it. It's just pure logic and trying to understand all of the things. So at the heart of this is a book called Organon. Is it the Organon or just Organon by Aristotle? And I think it's broke up into a few different sections. The Organon broke into a few different sections, and the first one of all of these is where it starts off with understanding the word. I don't want to go into too much of it, but in order for you to start anywhere within geometry, you start at nothing, and the point, which is nothing.
Yeah.
Is that? Whee.
Hello.
Yeah. There you go.
Is that clear enough?
Yeah.
Right, I don't know what was going on there.
Discord had an update.
Completely thrown me now. Right. Okay.
So welcome,
right, do you want to,
Ravens.
Do you want to carry on for a little bit, or do you want me to jump straight in and try and do something?
Well, I mean, if you're ready to, I mean, like, we'll hand it over to you, because I don't want to be taking anything off. Yeah, like, you know,
No,
if you want to start off by correcting anything I said wrong.
No, I don't think you said anything wrong.
Oh, good.
It's just the organ. It's just I'll just say the Organon. I'll just call it the Organon.
Yeah.
It's just his first book, isn't it? His collection of works. Let me just get my I've got to try and get the screen sorted now, haven't I? Hold on a minute.
Okay.
Right, I'm just loading the.
Did you see the picture I got for you? Do you like that? Ravens. That.
What picture was that? Oh, the Aristotle one. Oh no, that's SE put that one in, didn't they? Right. I need to.
Here you go. This one. Boom! Look at that.
Right, is that showing the correct screen? Is Aristotle's Organon or not?
Yes. Categories.
Yeah. Am I okay to go then?
Yeah. If you want to go, yeah.
Yeah, right. Right, basically got to get my bed round together now with all that panic of trying to get my mic and everything working. Trying to get back to simplicity of everything. I'm getting an echo now. Are you?
No, it sounds okay
detecting
for
any
me.
echoes your side?
I think that might be through you. Have you got the video open and sound on the video? So that's what it'll be. You'll have the live. Yeah.
So what do I need to do?
You need to shut off your YouTube.
I don't think. I've stopped.
Yeah, it's okay.
I've stopped streaming now, haven't I?
Yeah.
Oh God.
It's all right.
Bloody useless. And go back again. Right, I've got that screen. Is that scared? That's sharing the correct screen now.
Yes.
Right now, I'm still getting the echo.
Have you still got your YouTube open?
No. No, I don't think so. I'm not running YouTube at the moment.
I can't think.
No, all I've got is I've just got Discord open. Oh, I'm opening bloody other things. No, the only thing I've got open is Discord.
Are you hearing yourself then?
Yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, I can carry on if it doesn't. Even it's not disturbing anybody else.
I can't hear it, but you don't want to be putting yourself off, do you? Talking back to yourself.
So I don't know how to stop that.
I don't know why you'd have feedback through yourself. How much is it? How much of a delay is it?
How much what?
How much of a delay is there in your echo?
It's not too much. I'll live with it anyway. I'll live with it. So basically,
Raven, perhaps before you start, maybe just jump out and jump in. It'll take a second, and it might solve it.
Right. Okay. Let me try that then.
More than likely, he's just got more than one audio source coming through. He just doesn't know where the other audio source is turned on.
Yeah.
We'll be with you very shortly. This is usual. This is going to be good.
If all else fails, we'll call in Rukia tech support.
How's that? Can we hear you? Can you hear us? How's it going? Hello?
Yeah. There's still the echo there. I'm just going to have to go along with it and just do the best I can, really. Just to do a quick breakdown of where we're heading for. We're going back to Aristotle's earliest works. And they start off with a collection of works called the Organon. And the first book of the Organon, or the first section, is the one called Categories. And this is where Aristotle is looking at basically language and how we formulate our ideas using language as symbology, really, for reality. I wanted to just take you back to an older document that Aristotle was aware of and utilised, and that's something called The Art of Grammar by Dionysius from Thrace. And I just wanted to open this because there's just one little section that shows you how old this idea of looking at the meaning of words and definitions and everything is. So hopefully this is going to work if I open this book up. If it go to the right place. Right. So this is one of the oldest Greek texts.
I don't think that's changed. Not on our screens anyway. I'm still looking at the Aristotle's Oregon categories one.
Oh, you're not seeing the page I've just opened?
No.
Right. Oh, I don't know how to do it. How would I share that?
How did you share it at the beginning? Did you share it as an app, or did you? I don't know how it's set up. It worked last week.
The link to the document website.
Oh, right. Okay, so
that won't open up.
The link to the document. Oh, have you got a different screen open, and can you go on to, be careful what you're doing though, and share your other screen? You know, can you go change windows?
There's a link to it on the Discord. Will I be able to get to it through that?
Yeah.
The link on Discord.
Exit full screen. Where's it at?
It's in Trivium 1. And it's the one on the grammar of Dionysius Thrax. Can you see it, Bev?
Yeah, I'll need to oh yeah.
I told you last week I was completely newbie to this.
Yeah, at 6 of 24, is it? I mean, I can get it on my screen. Can you? Let me see if I go to Discord and share screen. The grammar of Dionysus. So if you go to change screens, Ravens, it should have a window open up. You know when you shared your screen on Discord originally?
Yeah.
Can you, if you go to that bit and go to change screen and click on that, and does it give you the Dionysus as a new window that you can share? Because then you can control it then, and you share the new window. Oh, we've got a spinny blobs.
That's shared it.
We've got spinny blobs at the minute, or I have. Anyone else got anything other than spinny blue blobs?
It's not working.
You might need to close it down and start it up again as a share that window. Let's show in Discord. Oh. Showing your own screen there on Discord.
Oh, yeah.
Whoa. That opens it up in a new window, doesn't it? You need to share that window that you've just opened up.
That one.
No, that's a black screen.
I need some lessons on how to do stuff on Discord.
The grammar of, there you go, loading viewer. That's the screen that you need. You just need to sort your viewer out. There you go. Boom. Sorted.
Right. Can you?
We can see it. It's a bit short, small print, but yeah, we can see it. We're with you.
Is that the best I can do?
Yeah. That's good.
Right. Basically, all it was to, after all that, was to go to a section on here. I think it was.
You had 6 at the bottom.
That's it, number 12. Yeah. Right. This is the grammar of Dionysius Thrax. And this is a work that would have been known to Aristotle. This particular axiom within this, axiom number 12, is it specifies a word is the smallest part of an ordered sentence. And then number 13 is on the sentence. And it talks about a sentence is combination of words, either in prose or in verse, making complete sense. And then he talked about the different parts of a sentence, verbs, nouns, participles, and everything. But what struck me about that was the similarity between the way that was being defined and compared to, say, Euclid, where he talked about point being without breadth and depth and things. So
yeah.
You can almost see the same axiomatic system was being used in this grammar of Dionysius Thrax as it was in that later got used within the axioms of Euclid. So I think what I was trying to demonstrate there, I need to go back now to
Yeah,
previous,
change your windows back again.
So if I go back on to change the screen, I need, maybe it hardly seemed worth all that effort. Right, so I'm back on.
Yeah.
Right, back on the phone. So basically, what I was trying to demonstrate was the fact that these axiomatic systems have been going for a long time, and that Aristotle was obviously using some of these works at his time when he was looking at his own work on grammar and logic, and the simplicity of it, and how it was all to do with getting down to defining words and definitions and sentences and structure. And I think that's why Aristotle had such an interest in going into so much detail. So basically, his work that we're going to be looking at is called the Organon, and the first part of that is called categories. It consists of, there's 6 parts to the Organon. You've got categories, on interpretation, prior analytics, posterior analytics, topics, and statistical reputations. I've got a quick. I'll just quickly show you the. I'm not sure how. Did that show up?
Yes.
Okay, or do you want to go into the bigger screen?
No, that's okay. We can see it.
You can read that.
Yeah. I can.
Yeah. Hold on. Let me just do this. I'm just going to go into.
Whoa.
Here we go with this. Right, categories. So the category introduces Aristotle's idea of the tenfold classification of that which exists, and they are substance, quantity, quality, relation, place, time, situation, condition, action, and then something he calls passion, but other people call other things. So basically, what he's done is he's categorized everything in reality into these 10 categories that he can then slot everything into, and with substance being the most important. So that's what the categories is all about. It's quite an in-depth thing. I'm not sure how well we'll get into that this week because it's all gone a little bit pear-shaped.
Yeah. There's no rush.
But we'll see how we get on. The next one is called on interpretation. Just quickly go through. These are what we'll have to work through to get right the way through the Organon. Once we've done the categories, we'll go on to on interpretation, which introduces Aristotle's conception of propositions and judgments, and the various relations between affirmatives, negatives, universal, and particular propositions. So we start to get more and more into the logic. Once you get past the categories and into the on interpretation, then you'll go into prior analytics. This is where he introduces his syllogistic method. So we'll be exploring the syllogisms and Aristotle's particular take on that method of logic. Posterior analytics, dealing with the demonstration and the definition and scientific knowledge treating the issues of constructing valid arguments and inferences. So this is about how you can. This will be looking into how you construct your arguments and make sure that they're valid. And moving on then to something called the topics, which is more work on constructing valid arguments and inferences. And then you end up with the final one, with sophistical refutations. And this is where you are looking at the fallacies. So this is where he gives an in-depth breakdown of all the different types of fallacies that the sophists use when you're discussing the logical systems that we're going through. So that was basically looking at, that's basically what the Organon's made up of. And what we've got to start off is with the categories. We won't get through all of this today because it's quite. I'm hoping it's going to develop into a bit of a conversation because there's aspects of this that I need some help with as we go through as well from the rest of the gang really. Basically, let's move on to starting at chapter 1. Chapter 1, they're only fairly small documents. Chapter 1 is one of the smallest. So let's see if I can do better with this thing. Right. Basically, what Aristotle was saying is that there's various ways that you can look at words which are symbolic of things that exist in reality. And the first ones are what he terms as things that are named equivocally or equivocally, however you want to pronounce it. And basically what this is looking at things that are said to be named equivocally when, though they have a common name, the definition corresponding with the name differs for each. So, let me go back. So what you're talking about is that it's two words that sound the same, but their definitions correspond with different things. So in this example, in his book he gives a real man and a figure in a picture can both lay claim to the name animal. So basically what you're saying is that you've got an image, you've got a real person, a man, and then you've got a picture of a man. Both of them can be called man because they are figuratively a real man and a man, but they can also be called animal because they're both animals. So equivocally, they have a common name, but the definition differs for each. Because what he says is, should anyone define in what sense each is an animal, his definition in the one case will be appropriate to that case only. So they're both animals, but they're different types of animals. If you understand what this, the wording is quite the way he writes it in this particular chapter can get quite confusing and needs to be teased out really. I mean, if you go back to what it says about equivocally, things are said to be named equivocally when, though they have a common name, the definition corresponding with the name differs for each of those objects.
Yeah, I think I get it.
Do you get the idea that this is where people can be talking about?
Yeah,
like they talk about. This is if you take it back to like the straight line and the curved line. You know, if you're talking about a straight line, but people are thinking one's in their mind they've got a straight line, the other one's got a curved line. They're calling it the same thing, so it's equivocal, but the definition is actually different.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, well, that would be a fallacious sort of thing, because in this case, it's showing you a man and a picture of a man and saying you could call them both animal, right? But one of them's a picture of something. So the definition of what you use for animal would be termed differently than the actual man animal.
Yeah.
And the other one is you conjuring an image, but I don't think he's talking about that, is he? At the minute, I think he's talking about things as they are, with different, same thing but different meanings. It's
and the need to. I was just going to say, and the need to then come to terms, right? That's why you come to terms, so you can understand. Are we talking about the picture of the man, or are we talking about the man? Because both of them call man or animal. There's a picture of an animal, or there's an animal. But unless you come to the terms to understand exactly what you're talking about something different.
Yep.
Yeah. So let me just come out to this view a minute. So if you look over to, might be able to get it up better. There you've got named equivocally. So there, what he's saying there is things are said to be named equivocally when, though they have a common name, the definition corresponds with the name differs for each. Thus, a real man in a figure in a picture can lay claim to the name animal, yet they're equivocally so named, for they have a common name. The definition corresponding with the name differs for each. For should anyone define in what sense each one is an animal, his definition in the one case will be appropriate to that case only.
I get that, because if you're defining the man as a picture of a man and defining it that way, then that definition doesn't apply to the actual man, because one's a picture, like...
Yes.
Yeah.
Could they be two different issues? The picture as opposed to the real thing, and then the animal, meaning it could be a human or a dog or whatever else.
Yeah. I think it's looking at the people use the same word to mean different things, and unless you've got unless you get your definitions and everybody understands what we're talking about, that's where you get cross purposes, isn't it?
Yeah,
because equivocally literally means sounding the same, right?
Yeah.
Equivalent
vocally, right? Because that's something about this word thing that I'd never thought about. Because I hear, or I would read equivocally, right? And that, to me, has never meant anything. But when you say equivocally, then it means a whole new meaning.
Yep.
Yeah, trying to emphasise the that it is a vocalised equivocally rather than equivocally, which is the way we would normally say.
Equivocally being the same.
Yeah,
equivocally being the same and equivocally sounding the same are two different things. Yeah.
Correct.
It's clever
Sounds
play with words, isn't it?
Yeah. Sounds the same, but means something different.
Exactly.
Technically means something different.
Exactly that, yeah.
And we have heard that many times before, right? Well, this word can have more than one meaning.
Yeah, isn't that though? Like, would you call it ironic, right? Because the very word means sounding the same, having different meanings, and that's what they've done with the very word itself. Fucking genius.
Exactly right.
Exactly that, bro. Yep.
And thank you, Raven, because that would never have come about if you hadn't have said that, right? If you hadn't have been here to do that, that's genius. Something to remember, that one.
You know, to pronounce it in a way that we're not used to, so it's not such a familiar sound as you know, equivocally. Just to try and bring out that difference. And then the next way that he says that you can term a word is the univocally. So what he says there is that on the other hand, things are said to be named univocally, which have both the name and the definition answering to the name in common. So this is where you're talking about two things being the same thing. A man and an ox are both animal, and these are univocally so named, inasmuch as not only the name but also the definition is the same in both cases. So if a man should state in what sense each is an animal, the statement in the one case would be identical with that in the other. So this is where you can say you've got a man and an ox, but you're looking at their definition as animal, and that they are both animal. So they both mean exactly the same thing. So you're talking about the same definition there. It may be that they're different objects, but the aspect, the definitional aspect that you're looking at is the animal side of things, rather than the. You're not looking at the man and the ox as two separate.
Yeah. Just with respect to the animal part, like, i.e., they both have blood, they're both breathing, you know, all of the animal aspects are both the same, right?
Yeah. And then what he's starting to do with these categories is break everything down to eventually into genus and species and get everything categorized into these 10 boxes really that he puts everything into, to try and make it easier with communication so that people know exactly what they're talking about when they're communicating with each other. And then the only way that he has is that he's something he terms something that's named derivatively. So here he's talking about things where their name comes from another source, really, such as, like, he says that the grammarian derives his name from the word grammar, courageous man from the word courage. So some of the words that we use to define people are derived from other words that have an association with them. So he's basically saying there's only these three different ways of looking at things. You've either got words that sound the same but have different meanings, or words that sound the same and do have the same meaning, and then words that are derived from other words because they've got something similar in association with them. I mean, that was the best I could make of chapter 1. And like I say, they're only a short thing, but they're quite thought provoking and try to get you thinking quite deep. And then I thought it might be interesting to look if we can look at some more examples that we can think of related within the argument that's going on at the moment and with the geometry, where have these confusions been, where have the sophists been able to use the confusion between these different ways of categorizing objects have cropped up? I mean, can anybody think of anything other than like the one that we all know, which is to do with horizontal and level, where they've changed the meaning of the words?
Well, we did have earlier. We had straight again, when straight can mean both straight and curved. But I'm not too sure that's part of this. But it's how people use these different naming tricks, right? Because it does say named equivocally, named univocally, right? And named derivatively. Yeah. So it does mean that you can make words up, right? It does mean, as long as you follow these rules.
Yeah.
If there isn't a name for something, if no name exists, you can do this, I'm guessing.
Yeah, because I think what he's basically taking is the importance of humans having the ability to name things, because once you start to be able to name things, you can then start putting them into categories, and then you can start separating them into different sets, and then start doing your logical processes on them with the syllogisms and all the rest of it that comes from it. It comes from this ability of the human species to be able to name things. And then we also have this ability to name things, call things the same things but have different meanings, which then gives us the ability to be able to twist and turn and change the meaning and definitions, and cause sophistry and confusion later down.
Spellcasting.
Yeah, this plays nicely into the whole law of identity thing, right?
Yeah.
That you have to be able to understand the words that are being used and when they are actually the same and when they are not. Even if you look at the example that Aristotle uses for univocally, you have the term animal that's being used, and that term can apply to both a man and an ox, but a man is not an ox.
Yeah.
Right? So unless you've identified what you're talking about, am I talking about an animal? Okay, then we can agree on that term. We've come to terms on that term. We can go forward. So there's no contradiction in the law of identity. Right? But if I'm talking about an animal and this cup that I have in front of me, totally different thing, right?
Yeah. And the way that he looks at the difference between, say, the ox and a man, he talks about the brute animal, and then he talks about the rational animal. And that's where he divides man from the ox, because he classes man as being a rational animal, which separates him from the brute animal.
Is he not also using the man and the ox to define the term animal? Right? It's a multi-working way, right? You're in the discussion, you're coming to terms on man, ox, and animal, right? And you're seeing where they both can come together and where the terms are different but then the same, right? It all works together.
Yeah, it does. I mean, you consider that because the whole of that chapter is on there. That's all it consists of. But when you're trying to work through it and and really thinking about it, it takes you quite a while to get into it and to start understanding exactly what Aristotle is starting to get at, even though it's such a small, simple little categorization of initially just looking at how things are named.
I was just wondering, how do you guys think it was accepted him to compare a man to an animal back in those days?
Yeah, doesn't seem like it could be much wrong if that's the text.
Yeah, I think Raven said it right, Essie, that back in Aristotle's time, the nuance was put on brute versus rational, right?
Yeah.
In its absolute sense, the human being is an animal, right? We have those things in common with animals. I think Bev said it right. We breathe, we have eyes, we see, we hear, we have brains, albeit different sizes, et cetera, et cetera. So we belong to that category, to use the word categories, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, very different when you move down into the categories of something like brute, animal. Then you get into descriptors, which is what lacks a lot of times in the dialogues that people have, is that next level, no pun intended, or maybe pun intended, that next level down understanding of what are you talking about? What does that word mean when you use that word or phrase? And very rarely do people delve into that. This is why it's not easy to some to get into this kind of stuff, because who has the time to parse your words like this? Well, Aristotle thought it was very important to be able to parse your words and know what you're talking about, so that someone else knows what you're talking about.
Yeah, it did.
Absolutely. Yeah. I guess I was thinking of it more like in a religious. Maybe I used the wrong example, because some people will not agree that we're animals. They'll say we're a spiritual, we're like something more, we're divine.
Yeah, well,
I meant
isn't
it
that
like
where their thing talking about being a rational animal? I think
being
that's where
able
that
to
came
rationalize
into it,
stuff. Yeah.
I think you're right there. I'm sorry, I'm not meaning to talk over. I keep getting the echo, and it just throws me a bit.
No problem.
I think if we move on to chapter 2, which is one of the most difficult chapters. That's why I said I'm not sure how much we'll be able to get through this session with, particularly with the start that we've had. But if I move on to chapter 2, which I've broken down in this way. Just going quickly back to the categories, he's got 10 categories, and they're broken up. There's one category called substance, and then there's 9 what are called accidents. And the substance is the most important category, because let me just get these categories up. I meant to go through this first. It would have been better to have see if I can get that up on screen. Right. Let me just go through the categories in a bit more detail before we move on. I got a bit thrown at the beginning, so I'm all out of sequence. Right, going back to looking at the categories, which is looking at the ways things can be said, things can be thought, and things that can be. So that's basically what the Organon is about. That's what the logical works is about. Things that can be said, things that can be thought, and things that can be. And if you look at the first, which is substance, this is what I said, there's 1 substance and 9 what he calls accidents. Substance, which in Greek is us here, the most important and fundamental element of all things. Each individual thing has its own substance, which is unique to that thing and does not belong to any other individual thing. And that's divided into what's called a primary substance and a secondary substance. Primary substance exists in their own right, whereas the secondary substances are essentially properties of the primary substance and cannot exist in their own right. So that's almost looking at a primary substance being similar to a genus and a secondary substance being equivalent to a species. So a substance, a primary substance, can't be broken down to any other category than what it is. So that you would be looking at the difference between, say, man. Man is a substance, or woman.
Could that be like Dave, though?
No.
No.
No, so like if you're looking at the individual person, they're not a substance, if you know what I mean. If you're looking at it as that individual, you're not a substance. The substance is the primary thing that exists on its own right. Did everybody get where that's coming from? Or does that just confuse people? If you look at the other, categories that he's got, the quantity, which relates to things like number, weight, volume, many, few. Quality related to the nature of something, red, whether it's wise, whether it's cold. Then he has a category called relation, where you're looking at the relationships between things, like something is half of something, it's greater than something, it's taller beneath, next to something, before something. Then you have place, which is where it is. Is it in the market? Is it at home? Is it in the sea? It's placed in space. Then you have date, or some call it time, some say date. So that's its place in time, really. You know, whether it's a Tuesday, a Monday, or the 10th of May, what time it is. Then you've got position and posture, describing whether an object is lying, leaning, backwards, upside down. Then you have called condition or state. Is it armed? Is it boiling? Is it on? Is it off? Then he has a category called action, where you've got, that could be the act of throwing, carrying, cutting. But then you've got that which is being acted upon, which is affection. That's being thrown, being carried, being cut. So can you see how those other 9 are different to substance? If you're looking at substance as being the unique thing that exists, where you don't need to define it with anything else.
Yeah, like the object, the ball or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And then the other things are just different ways that you can describe that particular thing.
Yeah. They're sort of like things you can predicate, aren't they? You know, that it has 2 parts, or that is a red cup. You know, if you get down to the essence of something like man, then you can't go any further, but man is just man, and it exists in its own right.
Yeah,
you can start predicating it with, but then you're getting away from the substance of what it is. Then that it might be wearing, you know, a red suit, or you know, got a pair of shoes, or you're coming away from the substance of what something really is. So that was just, I just wanted to try and emphasize that there's a difference between substance and what he calls the accidents, which are accidental things that happen to objects that get described and predicated onto the system. So I should have gone on to that before, really. Now, chapter 2 is quite complex. He talks about speech being categorized into simple speech, and then you've got composite speech, and then something that's never predicable, which I'll come to later. But simple speech is basically forms of speech that are either simple or composite. Examples of the simple. Sorry, I've done this wrong. Forms of speech are either simple or composite. Examples of the latter, which are the composite ones, are the man runs or the man wins. And of the former, which are the simple forms, you just simply have man, runs, wins. So basically, he's saying you've got simple words, and then you've got those coming together in more complicated forms of speech, which he calls composite speech. Now, basically, what he's just talking there about how language is built up from these units of simple speech, really, which are just simple words, aren't they? Single words that need to have meaning and definition. But then they get brought together into composite speech, which that's when you start predicating them and getting introducing logical systems within the sentences to give meaning and logical meaning to things. So he starts this chapter off talking about that. Let me just see where we can go and make any sense with this. So that's where we were. Right. Forms of speech are either simple or composite. And there he's saying, of things themselves, some are predicable of a subject and are never present in a subject. Thus, man is predicable of the individual man and is never present in a subject. This is where he's getting towards talking about substance being different to the accidents. Because what he's saying is that when you get to a subject that's not predicable, it means that you can't break it down any further and describe it in any other way than what it actually is. This isn't. Let me try and get into this. I think again, I've got off to a bad start. It's thrown me completely off track, really.
Don't worry about it. I like the idea of the breaking these words down and the way he's I don't know, formulating the use of words, which I don't know if anybody else has ever done. I was never taught this sort of word usage, if you will.
It's intentional, right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm getting out of this. That's what I got out of this is it's all intentional from the very simplest speech that you can imagine, a single word, to composite speech, putting words together to mean something. It's all
Yeah.
very intentional. And the idea that words can just be bantered about and they can mean different things and we can just interchange them, and an axiom isn't an axiom and a postulate isn't a postulate and you can just interchange them and it's no big deal, is bullshit. This is all very intentional, or at least it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Right?
I wanted to have a discussion around this particular thing here where he's talking about of and in. And let me try and explain what the conversation was I wanted to have around this, because he makes a big thing in this chapter 2. I mean, just look at that. There's hardly any words actually written down there. That's chapter 2 in its entirety, just broken down into its relevant paragraphs and sentences. But it's so full of meaning. And this thing where he's talking of and in. He talks about right. Other things again are both predicable of a subject and present in a subject. Thus, while knowledge is present in the human mind, it is predicable in grammar. And then you've got, thus man is predicable of the individual man and is never present in a subject. So he's talking about things being of. Man is predicable of the individual man, but not in a subject. And then he's talking further on, by being present in a subject, I do not mean present as part or present in a whole, but being capable of existence apart from the said subject. Now, to me, it's almost as if he's saying that if something is present in the subject, it's part of its pure essence, so that it can't exist beyond that subject. Whereas if something is present, is part of something, then it's as if it can exist separate from the subject. It's as if he's trying to, and I'm struggling to get an understanding here, which is I'm hoping if we can have a conversation around this and see what other people can get from this.
Yeah. So basically, he's separated of and in it, yes, within simple speech.
Yes.
Right, and
it seems to have great significance, and that's what I've been trying to work on, and was hoping that perhaps when we got to this bit, if people can look at this and have a think about it, and if we can have a conversation and try and get to the essence of what this of and in is that he's talking about.
Well,
because it seems to be under the.
I've got Pandora's box there on screen, so I'm thinking in a box, right? That's all my mind can get away from. But that's a trick, isn't it? Am I thinking of it wrong? Of and in? Is there some other way for me to think of it? Because when I think of, I'm thinking somebody of a place or something. And yeah. I don't know. My like vocabulary or my grammar is very limited.
Yeah, that's why I'm thinking that this has got to be a conversation, hasn't it? So
yeah.
I mean, I tried to separate where he's talking of the of and the in. The Pandora's box is just the name of the who published the
right.
collected
So
works.
it's not part of his. No, okay, good.
Ignore that one. That's automatically put there because I copied I referenced this from a Kindle document, so it just copies itself over. So the Pandora's box is nothing to do with it.
Yeah, I think I may be able to help a little bit.
Yeah, come on then.
If you, I think this whole piece of between of and in is really trying to understand what is predicable and what is not predicable, and just to not that we all need to go back to grammar in school because I hated it, but the word predicate itself, the first definition is something that is affirmed or denied of the subject in a proposition in logic.
Right.
Okay. Or a term designated as property or relation. So just think about that. So if something can be predicated, you can say it is of that thing, but it's a predicate, right? If you're attempting to use a predicate of something that's in that thing, you really can't do that. So it's, I think, I can't remember what video it was, but it was one of the ones that was put out in the Trivium chat room there. But the professor that was trying to struggle through this, and he had said himself that this chapter 2 is hard to get your head around.
It does say if you think you understand it, then you're not understanding it.
Yeah. And I think that not that it's easy, but I guess the easiest way to think about it is, can you predicate it, whatever the it is or not? If you can, if it's allowed, you're saying that of something, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's in something, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're describing it, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's true. So the way I thought about this, the way I broke it down in my mind is if you're saying that you can say something of an item or of a thing, that is it's basically an opinion. I think this of that thing, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's true. The in piece means it's true. You can't predicate that. It's not objective, right? It's a fact. It just is. And that's when you use in instead of. And I think that as you're getting past grammar and into logic and rhetoric, you need to be able to identify between the use of those two words as you're talking about something or someone, for that matter.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense?
Pardon?
Does that make any sense?
Yeah, no, that's helped a lot.
Would you say that if it's an in, you can categorize it, right? You can definitely put it in a category. You can come to a conclusion about it and say, put it in there. Whereas the of, it's a bit, don't know, you can't really place it in anywhere. You can't place it in a category because it's hovering around.
Yeah, I think.
Go on.
I was just going to say, I can only go back to what I thought played well with me in a video I saw from this one professor, but he used the example, he had a white piece of chalk in his hand. And I think he used the example of the term white. And he said, I can say of this chalk that it is white. I can say that. What I can't say is that white is in the chalk. I can't say that. It makes no sense at all. Right?
I was just going to say that because this last paragraph that we haven't looked at yet talked about the whiteness.
Mm-hmm.
And here he's saying, which I think supports what you were just saying, some things again are present in a subject, but are never predicable of a subject. For instance, a certain point of grammatical knowledge is present in the mind, but is not predicable of any subject. Or again, a certain whiteness may be present in the body, for colour requires a material basis, yet is never predicable of anything. That's basically saying what you were just saying, isn't it? That you can say that there's whiteness, but you can't say that whiteness is in the substance.
Correct. It doesn't actually exist outside of the substance, outside of that thing, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't. Whiteness doesn't exist outside of the piece of chalk. You can't hold whiteness in your hand.
Yeah.
Right? You could hold material that happens to have a pigment that's white. Yes, but you can't hold whiteness, right? But you can say of the chalk that it is white. I can predicate it.
Yeah.
That and there's nuance in there that obviously Aristotle thought of. I think the people at the time when they had their rhetoric and their rhetorical arguments used. But going back to what we have said many times, sophists can use this to their advantage to muddy the waters, right? Whether something is of or in.
Yeah.
How about this statement? He is of the school. He is in the school.
Yeah. Yeah, that very good, Essie. I was going to use a biblical thing that kind of hit with me. Christians often are told we are of this world, but we are not in this world. Or we are in this world, but we are not of this world. Right? There's different connotation there when you use those terms of or in.
Yeah. It was, while I was reading this and trying to get my head around it, it was obvious that there was a big importance about this of and in. And like I said all along, this is a journey that I'm on, starting from my starting position, just as everybody else starts from their own starting positions, which is why it needs to be a conversation, because I can't possibly, on my own, get to the detail of some of this stuff without coming to this conversation and hearing the views of other people who are also working with this and coming from different directions, which is why it's been so good, like with the input that you've had and the clarification that's helping me to see within this now. Because something like this, I think I will probably be having to revisit this. And I think some of the stuff I've been watching around it as well, they talk about that it's not until later on, when you've gone through the rest of Aristotle's works and you're working your way through like some of the other books, that the importance of this actually becomes even more relevant and obvious. That didn't seem obvious at the time. Just thinking about sticking things into categories, into boxes, and what's the point? As we work through the different chapters, and having to break them down almost word for word, sentence by sentence, which seems very tedious and very, and could be off-putting for a lot of people. But I think if we're going to defend ourselves against the sophists, I think it's work that we've got to do. I mean, how do other people feel about that?
Some of my biggest leaps happened exactly like that through geometry, logic. Going forwards, learning a bit, and then going backtracking again. Every time we go backwards, that's why we turn the phrase advanced simplicity. Because every time you go back to the beginnings, you learn something new and you end up seeing something that you didn't see. Like now I'm looking at this thinking, that's fascinating because I don't get it yet.
Yeah.
And I know at some point it will click, but not at the minute. I'm seeing the possibilities though, because this to me is like the first time I saw Euclidean geometry. Some of the things that they seem so simple, but they didn't make sense.
Like a straight line.
Well, no, more like some of the definitions that seem so simple, right? It seemed like why is he doing that? But it comes to you later on. This is the same. Of and in seems so simple, but trying to get your head around what he's meaning there is that's the switch that's been done. Somebody's purposely not taught us this for a reason, to trick us.
It's obvious that there's gaps in the education that we've received that prevent you seeing some of this stuff. And I think unless we go back and we do this work, we're not going to get it back, are we?
Yeah, this is about words and the meaning of words.
Yeah.
Correct, SE, right on the money.
Yeah.
It is why many people have consistently, and I have it throughout especially my corporate career, have said words mean things. You can't just throw words around. I mean, it happens all the time. We do it every day in our own lives. But when it comes to trying to actually have a meaningful communication or conversation with somebody, you shouldn't do that. It really needs to be intentional. The choice of words, the coming to terms of those words, it's all intentional, and it should be intentional. And just one more point on the difference between of and in. I think struggling with the in, what's written there as the example for in.
Yeah.
If you could picture, so his example is some things, again, are present in a subject, but are never predicable. Again, the word predicate means to describe of something, right?
Yeah.
So, for instance, a certain point of grammatical knowledge is present in the mind. So if you can almost picture that someone might have a piece of grammatical knowledge that sits in their mind, literally sits in their mind, but you can't then describe, you outside of that mind cannot then describe that bit of grammatical knowledge that exists in that person's mind. You can't do it. You can't predicate it. It's impossible. Why? Because it's something it's almost like the discussion of 1D and 2D being conceptual. You really can't necessarily describe something or predicate something that's conceptual. And in this case, I can if I'm holding a piece of chalk, right? That's not conceptual. It's real. I can say, I can predicate it all day long. I can give you all sorts of information about it. What I can't do is tell you, picture I think I used this example before. If I said the words broken glass, what I can't do is predicate that, because I don't know exactly what you've now pictured in your mind. Because you could have pictured a broken window, you could have pictured a broken glass on the floor. The glass could be shaped differently. I can't predicate that. I mean, I could try, but it doesn't do any good.
Could I try it as well and say that because it's in, it's not seen. So because it's not seen,
good way to put it.
Can't really do anything with it, right? You can't put your finger on it, let's say.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
But
it is important. It is super important.
Yeah.
I mean, I personally myself didn't want to go any further than chapter 2 tonight, because I wanted really to get my head around this particular aspect of it, and before moving on.
That's great. Yeah.
And I need time to digest it all as well.
Yeah, you must be going through it mental, because you're having to actually go through it and then present it as well. You've done a wonderful job. And this...
Well, it would have been all right. You'd have gone off to such a bad start. And,
hey,
you through me.
We're all learning. It's only your second one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the way he set the Organon out is that this is probably the most difficult chapter for people to understand. Because from what the feeling I've got, looking at the information that's around on the internet to do with the categories, and watching some of the various videos by these philosophers and teachers that have been teaching it for decades, and even they seem to struggle with, and they're saying, if you think that you can understand this chapter with a cursory reading, then you're fooling yourself, and that it is difficult and takes work, particularly for people who are coming from a background where they may not have had the groundwork that they've had themselves.
I think.
So obviously, I'm hoping I'm going to learn, how to best to present this information and to get it there. But I'm hoping that what it's doing is stimulating conversation, because I need that feedback as well to build upon.
Yeah, this is the stuff that is needed to be talked about. I think it's a logical work again, laid out from the beginning. But the problem with this is, in order for you to understand the categories and how you're listing words, you already need to know about some of the words. I'd never heard of predicate before. I didn't know what the fuck that means. That's a new word for me.
Yeah.
And that's in the beginning of how you formulate the axiomatic system of this.
There are some definitions I thought we might want to go through. I've chucked a load of different definitions up here that I thought it might be interesting for us to go through and just have some clarification on by people who know might know a little bit more understanding about them. Like here, we've got, in Aristotelian logic, the subject is the part of a proposition about which a statement is made. I think that one's fairly obvious, isn't it? That's the main subject that is being spoken about in the statement, unless I've got that wrong. And then there's other definitions there. If you look at this, there's a few ones for predicate that might help you, Bev, if you have a look at those.
Yeah.
Can you read them on your screen?
Yeah.
The part of a sentence or clause containing a verb and stating something about the subject. It's like you were saying, wasn't it, that you can make a statement, you can predicate statement on something, but when you get to that thing where you're talking about sort of like the whiteness of the chalk, can you say what that whiteness is, and is it in the substance, or is it just something that's predicated on?
Yeah. I see.
In here it says, in Aristotelian logic, predicable is equivalent to each of the classes to which predicates belong, usually listed as genus, species, difference, property, and accident. So basically there, you can see how he's breaking down all his predicates into these categories, with genus being that's the one which is substance. That's genus is like the unique class that you can't reduce any further, isn't it? And then from that you get your species and your differences and your properties and your accidents.
Yeah, actually, that's a really good one to kind of think on it as you're trying to figure out the of and the in again.
Yeah.
Is to use the example of a grammatical idea or a piece of grammatical knowledge that sits in someone's head. Can you apply any of those? I think there are 9 other than substance or genus, right? There's 9 other things that you can apply to it, right? There's time, there's action, there's, I can't remember all of them, but
they're here, aren't they?
can you apply any of those things to that bit of grammatical knowledge sitting in someone's head? Nope. Can't.
Let's see if I can get these. See if I can get up in a easy way to read.
Yeah, so you have substance, and then after substance, you have number, quantity, quality, relation, place. You can't, if you use the example of a bit of knowledge sitting in someone's head, you can't use any of those items.
No.
Quantity, quality, relation, place, date, time, position, posture, condition, state, action, affection, or I think that was passion, suffering, or kind of how that thing is, right? You can't say any. You can't. Those are the predicates. You can't predicate that thing that sits in someone's mind. You can't. It's impossible.
So that's an in, isn't it? That's something that's in.
Yeah, that's something that's in. You can't use these things, these identifiers, right? With that in thing, whatever the in thing is. You can of something that's of, right? So again, something that I hold in my hand, I can use those if I have a I have a toothpick in my hand right now. So if I set this toothpick, right, I can say I have one, right? The quality related to the nature of something. It's plastic. It's flimsy. I get the place it's sitting on my desk. All those things I can say of this toothpick that I'm holding, but I can't do it of something conceptual. But the conceptual thing is still a substance. It's still unique to that thing. It still exists in a way, right? It just doesn't exist tangibly. So I can't use those identifiers down below.
Yeah. That's a good way of putting that. A very useful tip there. It's interesting with some of these when you think, we were talking about colour, we were talking about white, weren't we? But you can look under quality. White can be a quality. That doesn't necessarily mean it's in something, does it? Is it just that it's a red pigment, or is it nature, say red, which you can't redness, you can't predicate if it's.
No, you can't. If you just you're right. If you just take redness or any color and you want to turn that into something that you're speaking of, right?
Yeah.
You really can't predicate redness. How do you predicate that? What's the quantity of redness?
Yes, that's what I'm trying to get at. It's you can't grasp it, can you? Because it's it's just
conceptual.
Redness. Yeah, it's conceptual.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, there's other chapters here, but I thought that was probably heavy enough to go with before moving on to the next ones.
Oh yeah, anybody that's at all interested in this stuff is going to dwell on just the first 2 things you presented, Raven.
I would suggest that you get a cheap copy of Aristotle's Organon or all the works or whatever. They're fairly easy to get hold of, aren't they? Online, or even watch some of the videos and the resources we put on there, because there's some very good stuff out there that will build upon this foundation. I mean, it's already helped a lot with me tonight going through this thing and having the feedback from the rest of you, really. And I love the way that so like SE comes in with like just a couple of words or a sentence or something, and he sort of he captures the essence of what you're trying to say brilliantly sometimes in just a few words. Really shout out to SE for that.
That's the Greek part of him.
Actually, he has got that.
Yeah, he's got that kinship going on.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm finding it. This is fascinating for me because the arena we're in and the arena we came into was a discussion arena. This is how to formulate an understanding and impart that onto somebody else. How to come to an agreement and how vital that is of the understanding of the words that you're using. I like it.
It's the coming to terms part that really explains it all. Like, if you don't come to terms with the person you're conversing with, then you might as well. One is talking about giraffes and you're talking kangaroos.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would go so far as to state if someone that is desiring to have a conversation with you, or you're desiring to have a conversation with them, if they're not willing to come to terms, if they're not willing to go down that path of let's get our definitions straight, let's make sure we're each talking about the same thing, there's no sense in having a conversation with them. I think you mentioned that in an earlier conversation today, SE, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's absolutely no use. I agree with you 100%. Why even have it?
Yeah, waste of time, and it's just more circular argument waiting to happen, which is just useless, I think, to anybody except the actual drama in it.
Yeah,
couldn't agree more with you. Yeah.
I mean, one of the interesting things one of the philosophers I was listening to was talking about the of and the in, and he says you won't realise the importance of that until later on down the line in your studies, when all of a sudden you'll realise why this chapter was so important. And I think it seems to be that it's like there's a continual revisiting of what you've done before to build upon and take forward. And not to get too despondent if you find it a little bit confusing now, and that things will get clearer as you move further along and revisit it a number of times.
Yes, it will.
So unless anybody's got much more to say,
well, I was just going to say one last thing about of and in, again, as I was thinking about it, it is actually replacing of and thinking about it as about, because it really is what can be predicable, right? What can have a predicate assigned to it. And in and of itself, a predicate is stating something about something. So if you can and actually make sense, right? If you can say something about something, and again, toothpick in my hand, right? It's white, it's plastic, there's one of them. Then it's in that category. If you can't do that, it's in the opposite category. It's in the other category. And that's why for me, I broke it down as something that's conceptual versus something that's real. And that's like kind of where the break made it for me.
Yeah, I like that. That'll be helpful as well, looking at it like that.
Because I think, especially in this arena, a lot of people want to describe something or predicate something or provide something about something that really is conceptual.
Yes.
That's not sound. We inherently know it's not sound, but yet they do it anyway because they must.
Yeah.
What do you make of this? I'm not quite sure what this particular one. The top sentence on the right, where it says, other things, again, are both predicable of a subject and present in a subject. Thus, while knowledge is present in the human mind, it is predicable of grammar. What do you make of that?
Yeah, so again, to me, it's whether something can be predicated, right? So in the one instance, he's saying that the example is knowledge, right? That word, knowledge. So knowledge is present in the human mind. So in that, you can't predicate it, right? That thing, knowledge, is present in the human mind. You can't predicate it. You can't say something that it's about something. However, that word also is predicable of grammar. So if you now switch and say, well, grammar is the thing that I'm talking about, well, I can say now that knowledge is grammar, right? Or knowledge is related to grammar in some way.
Yeah, could you not use grammar to impart that knowledge, right?
Right.
You can put it to words once it's in the mind and then give it to somebody else. So the knowledge is still there, but it's just passed on from one mind to the next through the use of grammar.
Yeah, that seems to make some sense.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not like it still doesn't make it a tangible thing, but it doesn't make it not real either. But it, again, shows the importance of the grammar and the way you can impart that knowledge. Or yeah. It is. Well, it's knowledge, isn't it? You have to be able to express it. It's no good it just being in your mind.
No.
I don't understand predicable of grammar.
That means you can say that knowledge is of grammar.
Okay,
right. So you can predicate it. You can say about grammar. Well, what about grammar? Well, it's knowledge. Okay, right?
Yeah.
Grammar is somehow knowledge, but knowledge also is present in the human mind. And then can you say anything about it? Nope. You can't. Don't know what color it is. You don't know how many of them there are. All you can say is it is. Okay, gotcha. Granted, it is. Knowledge is present in the human mind. But now it's a switch that happens, right? So now I'm not talking about knowledge anymore. I'm talking about grammar, but I can use knowledge to then describe grammar. I'm predicating grammar.
Yeah.
I'm using a predicate. I'm using knowledge as a predicate of grammar. I can do that because it's of the same type. It's describing grammar. Well, grammar is knowledge. Yeah. Okay. Knowledge is grammar. Okay. Or as a type of grammar, to be more specific. Sorry.
Yeah. If you think about it, if you're trying to communicate some knowledge to somebody and you haven't got a grammar, it would be impossible, wouldn't it? But how would you impart if there isn't a grammar that you can? Would you say to predicate onto that?
You might be underestimating the power of interpretive dance.
Just think about people who try to communicate, like say that with text speak and without use of grammatical convention and things like that, and how much confusion and misunderstanding happens because of a lack of grammar.
Yeah, well, that's what fascinates me about this, because it's in the simple speech bit where he's just using words: man, ox, runs, wins. You know, like you can't get much simpler than that.
No.
Yet this is I don't know. It seems like there's more to it that I'm not getting yet, right?
Mm.
Fascinating. Is it a use of the words? Is it because I have a misunderstanding of what of and in would mean? Like when you said before, you said about. I mean, that sort of something sparked, right? It gave me a new idea of. So
yeah, it's not. Yeah, I think you're on it, Bev. It's not the. And this is the hard thing because you're talking about simple speech, and then there's a word there, and the word is of, right? But it's not the word necessarily that's important. It's what it connotates that's important, right? It's what it suggests that's important. And what Aristotle's use of there suggests is that you're able to say something about the subject. And that's what it means to be predicable. You have to be able to say something about that subject and of course have it make sense, not be nonsensical, right? And the opposite is in. You can't say something about that thing and make it make sense. You can't. So when it comes to categorizing things, it's going to fall into one of those two categories. Either you can predicate it. In other words, you can say something about it. There's a quantity of the it. There's a relation of the it. There's an action of the it. There's a time and place of the it, whatever that is. You can say that about that thing or of that thing. Or you can't. And it's important to know the difference when you're utilizing grammar.
But isn't that what he's talking down when he's talking about the never predicable?
Correct.
When he's talking about a class of things which are neither present in a subject nor predicable of a subject.
Correct.
Such as the individual man or the individual horse. That's substance, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And you can't predicate. You can't predicate them, can you? Because they're never predicable. They're never in or of.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even that is convoluted, right? It's complicated because what what he's getting at there is the individual horse or the individual man. Well,
yes.
You can say that you could talk about or predicate that individual horse. The horse is brown, right?
Yes.
But what you can't say then is all horses are brown. You can't apply that to anything but that individual horse.
Mm.
Correct?
Yeah.
And that's the difference. So even the examples that are used, unless you really think them through, they're difficult. They're really difficult.
Yeah, because I suppose the concept of horse, like the conceptual horseness, is what you can't predicate, can you?
No. Especially that individual horse.
Yeah.
And that's why I said earlier, it kind of plays into the law of identity.
Yeah, that's what it's all about here, right? With relating it to what we're doing and having the conversations that we have. We had a guy came in here tonight, had no ability to define straight. The law of identity was gone at straightness. And that's a category, isn't it, really?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. This is very relatable to what we do here. We've noticed it for a bit. The law of identity. Just defining something can quite often be the make or break within an argument. And especially when that's where your starting point is. So you can work forwards from there, if you can't even come to terms on what the subject matter is, or even one of the defining words that you're going to use within your argument, if you can't do that, then yeah, what's the point?
Yep. Yeah, and to that earlier argument, right? Every time we get into these discussions around, spherical geometry as an example, right? And we ask for definitions within that, quote, spherical geometry. And it never comes to fruition. We never have it, obviously. We never have it. And so there's no need to define anything. It goes back to the what's on the website, right, Bev? About definitions. It's exactly reality for some people. There is no such thing as law of identity. There is no such thing as definitions unless it suits a certain argument. And then that's for the paralogists or sophists, depending on how you want to tag them. It's wizardry. It becomes wizardry. But in an honest conversation, you would always want to define your terms, come to terms. What exactly are we discussing? What's the box around it? What's the scope around it? Are we talking about something that has a definition or something that doesn't have a definition? What is the definition? But who, in especially today, whoever does that in a conversation, any conversation, when do you see, let's have a conversation about it. Great, let's come to terms. Let's define the terms. The only time we ever do it is in contracts. And this is important to me because I write contracts for a living. That's why this might be a little bit easier for me to get. Anyone who's written contracts knows you have to define the terms. It's the first thing I do when I start a contract is I have a whole list of definitions. Define terms.
I'm writing one right now as we speak.
There you go. So you know too, Essie. Exactly. You have to define the terms.
And I have to be very, very precise.
Yes, you do.
Because if I'm not, I'm going to end up doing more work than I have to.
Yep. And if you get into a situation where you're being judged, right, or arbitrated, you lose that unless you're very precise. So when it comes to argument and logic, then in the case, you lose if you're not precise.
Yeah, and if you write a term down and you don't understand it, doesn't matter. You're still held to that term.
Correct.
In the contract.
Yep.
Yeah.
Until that contract expires.
Isn't the problem with the conversation these days is that people don't seem to have the ability to come to terms? Is it as if they don't even think it's necessary to actually agree on your terms?
Right, or they don't want to because they need the wiggle room, right? And that's
Yeah,
where
that's right.
Yeah, and that's where I say, well, are you in it for the honest conversation or the honest questioning, or no?
It's always been about trying to define things at the beginning. I didn't have the understanding of the word's terms because it's just words, isn't it? The terms are an understanding of the words and the meanings of those words so that nobody can have a different understanding of what that word is. You've got to lay it out so the understanding behind it all is very clear to everyone. And that's what I think we've done in here. But it's not so easy to do it anywhere else. To come to terms about the very simple argument is one of the hardest things you'll ever do within this arena. And the argument is the formulation of all of the words together. And there's always seems to be problems within the terms somewhere. I mean, I've been around and heard the argument about I think it was in, or and or the or something. There's been some ridiculous arguments about individual words used within sentences.
All right.
Non-arguments. I think one of them was to do with gravity or something. It got ridiculous anyway. And it's all about people coming to use of a word and what they mean. And it should be very simple.
It should be.
Well, I find it is, because we're here and I'm learning. You know, I've never learned having an argument with somebody about what the definition of a word means. No, I've never learned a thing, but here.
Picture yourself back in Aristotle's time, right? I bet that's something that they did on a regular basis, was spend hours discussing and trying to come to terms on a definition or what a word means or something, even before they start having a conversation about whatever that topic is. And it might be useless for some people today, maybe most people today, but I think it would make for a more honest and genuine conversation, right? Which tells me all I need to know about when we say, quote, this arena, right? Because you go anywhere and you don't get any of that shit. Forget it. There's nobody interested in honestly getting to what a definition is and what it really means and what the extent or the scope of it is. There's no desire for any of that.
When I see a book like this, I see it's advanced, right? It's wrote simply, but the words are very exact, and they're very exact. You know, they actually mean something. Some of the words, like I say, predicate and univocally, right? They didn't really fit with me until, you know, I hear them. Now, because this has been translated from old school through, I don't know, Roman, Latin, Greek, you know, all of the different languages translated, there's a chance that some of the words have been lost. And these are the closest words they can use. So there's even a chance that this makes sense a lot simpler with the use of different techniques and different words to be able to express things.
Yep.
It's interesting you said that, because I picked up today, I was watching one video and they were talking about, you know, the way these names are categorized equivocally, univocally and derivatively. And then they didn't use name derivatively. They changed it to what was the word? It's gone out my head now. But they changed it. But it's a name that then appears later on in Aristotle's work. I think it was in the physics, in Aristotle's physics. So that like piqued my interest because allegorical. They've changed it from name derivatively, and they've said it's allegorical. So it's named allegorically. So that was making me now wanting to go and have a peek to see what was going on around when Aristotle wrote the physics, and why did they suddenly go from using those three and then changing one of them to allegorical rather than derivatively, and what difference that would make, I don't know. But you just wonder what's going on, what tinkering has gone on in the past as well.
Well, we've been saying it for a while. This is where the tricks are done. This is where the literal wizardry happens around words and the way words are used to either say the truth or lie. And it's hard to tell which if you're not up to date with the tricks and the uses of words, this is where I'm hoping not many people are watching. Maybe because they don't want to know this, because this is going to be the conversation killer. Wait till SE starts getting a grip of this sort of stuff and try.
Hell yes.
Yeah. This is going to show who can talk about what.
It's a very specialist subject, and I suppose a lot of people won't be interested, will they? But I find it fascinating, and I think it's an important conversation to have.
Yeah, if nothing else, I think it will, at least for those here in this Discord that are interested in going back to something that is as unpolluted as we can possibly get to, it's going to be important for others to know when you come in here, be prepared to deal with this, because we're not going to just seed the ground of no definition or no coming to terms. We're not going to do that, or at least we're not going to have a decent conversation and do that, right? We can have the throwing the spitballs at each other all day long. That's fine. But you're not going to have a decent conversation with us unless you're on this field, so to speak, with us.
Yeah, ready to come to terms.
Expect people to agree our definitions and our terms, won't we?
Yeah, that may be a first, a starting one, that, to see whether you can actually come to terms on anything right at the very beginning. Step one, work out what the argument is, and then step two, come to terms. And I bet it'll end there. Step two.
Probably.
Well,
I was just going to say that. Sorry.
Yeah, go on.
No, that's it. I was just going to say it's probably going to end there. Yeah.
It'll end with define a straight line.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, there you go.
The tumbleweed.
Couldn't even define a line.
Yes. Can't even get that far.
Yeah, this is
all points are horizontal these days.
This is the death nail for any conversation outside of this for us.
Yeah.
It's pretty obvious. Not many people want. This isn't the sort of thing people want. But thank you for the 20 odd people that are watching. This is.
No, I apologise for the chaos of the start. I've struggled a little bit having to work against my own echo.
I've been listening, on and off since you started, you guys, and it's been good. Thank you. I've been listening. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Raven, don't sell yourself short. This was brilliant.
Yes.
I mean, it was a difficult topic to do anyway. A difficult subject, chapter 2, chapter 1 and 2. So we didn't get off to a brilliant start, but I did my best.
This runs parallels what I've been doing in my other research on people and their findings. It is perfect for that. It was I learned a lot tonight. Thanks.
Oh, good. That's what it's about, here.
It's from Aulia. To Aulia, sorry.
Yeah, really good. I agree. Thanks, Raven. And I will say, I've in my years of being a trainer, a corporate trainer, what I would say is if I had people in a class is this part is like drinking talcum powder through a straw, but believe me, it'll taste better later. When you get into it and you really start thinking things through and you're starting to use words, believe me, if you've paid attention to this conversation, it'll be in the back of your brain gnawing at you a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it's all about, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's Kevin FP.
I might as well close my That was more studying down.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Raven. This is, I think this is the sort of thing it's been needed. We've been focused on geometry. This seems very similar, but with words, and this is what we should have done first. Had I been more wordy, or whatnot, like it might have been.
You know,
I might have got
you
there.
didn't know where to start, did you, really?
Well, yeah,
I think you had to have that conversation, didn't you, to do with this level?
Yeah, well, it has been a word definitional argument. We've gone through the geometric route, but still we end up on a definitional thing. It's about the terms of what level is. Like when you started about at the beginning, talking about words that can have two different meanings and different understandings. I immediately went to level, but thought, no, well, that's a fallacious sort of statement because you are actually talking about the same thing. Exactly the same thing with two different meanings, which is just wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty clear now why, if you look at the trivium and the quadrivium, why geometry sits where it sits and why grammar sits where it sits.
Yeah, grammar's right at the beginning.
Yeah, you got to be able to get the words down. You got to be able to understand the words and why are you picking words? Why are you choosing words? What are the definitions of those things? And then how do you, I'm sure once we get there, eventually, Raven, right, is the rhetoric of it and the logic of it. I mean, we're just in the very beginnings of grammar, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
We haven't even thought about logic or rhetoric yet.
In England, got a toe in the water.
What about the grammar schools in England?
Yeah.
Specific, originally, I should think.
Yeah, well, private schools, right?
Yeah. Well, and they taught, that's a great point, spot on. I mean, just the word, the phrase grammar school, right? It's what we've, at least for me anyway, I think for other people as well who might be interested in just what Raven's covered in the last 2 weeks, is it's foundational, right? It's the beginnings of critical thought. Being able to intentionally choose words, understand the definitions of those words, understand how to put them together and how not to put them together and why you would do so. That's all foundational stuff that does not get taught to our children anymore.
The thing is, how many words back in the days when, they were writing about or like looking at this, how many words were there that were different representations of the word, two different meanings? How many were there? Probably none, I should think. But now look, we got a dictionary filled with meanings, and this is the chaos in the words. And then you got to try and get some.
Yeah, maybe SE can chime in on this, but coming from a father who is from a different country and spoke a different language, he's always told me, even in the time that he's been in this country, and he's fluent in English, obviously, but he says, I never understand the English language because you can say too many things with the same word or same phrase. It doesn't make any sense when to use one versus the other. Versus in Italian, in his native language, it's much easier to do those things because words have there's far less equivocal words or equivocal, right?
It just brought to mind a passage I was reading. I'm sorry I came in late. I was busy, guys, but thank you, Raven. That was excellent. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Just this passage from the book, the Trivium, it says, broadly speaking, older languages have more complex systems of inflection, while the grammar of younger languages is more simplified. Immigration, trade, invasions, and occupations may have forced villagers to learn more languages over time, and rather than mastering the intricacies of any particular tongue, they muddle along with a simplified speech which later became the rule. And perhaps the finest example of this process and its result is English.
There you go.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Nice one, John.
Yeah.
Yeah, good find.
We need to reclaim the lost words.
Definitely.
And how do we do that?
The origins.
We have to have conversations, right? And find the missing words. The things that there should be words for. When things don't fit, it's usually because there's something that's not quite right.
We seem to have lost any precision in the language, don't we? We don't.
Mm-hmm.
People's conversations are so sloppy.
Yeah, too vague.
Yeah.
And carry it over to the legal system, and you're really lost. You have no idea what you're talking about.
Indeed. That's why we go back to what Essie and I were talking about earlier. Is we write contracts. Man, you better get those definitions as right as you possibly can, or you are going to be in trouble at some point.
Maybe Bev should come up with a glossary of terms for his channel here.
We should put a contract out.
Yeah.
You would be willing to sign this contract. Read the definitions very, very well.
The grammar of Dionysus Thrax.
Let's get rid of that ringtone.
So in that grammar of Dionysus Thrax, it's got discovery of etymology.
Yeah, I mean, that document looks fascinating to me.
Yeah.
I haven't delved really deep into it yet, but it looks fascinating.
Yeah, it confirms it here too. It says the first concise grammar in the West is attributed to Dionysus Thrax, 170 to 90 BC, who taught in Alexandria, Egypt.
70
I
to
it's
90.
fascinating the way that it seemed to be laid out, just like an axiomatic system, like Euclid. It was fascinating. I'm trying to find out what second channel I must have out, because I'm fed up with this echo.
Wow, on tone, pronunciation.
Are you still live now or not?
Yeah, we're still going. Yeah.
Just trying to sort my sound out.
Yeah, that's fascinating. That old words. I've never really been into it, but I could do with talking to people about this. Obviously, we will be doing that, and I'm gonna be understanding this a bit more. I'm liking it. It should help us with conversation tremendously. This.
What's that Dionysus one?
Oh, just all of this, everything that we're doing right now. Yeah. I understand the ideas of the Trivium, but now it seems that this particular bit and the understanding and coming to terms is the identity of I think that's that I can relate it to the identity of whatever it is you're talking about. It's a must within the logical system, and it obviously it's the building blocks that you're going to use.
100%. And if nothing else, getting a grasp, at least a basic grasp of this stuff, is going to make it harder for people to do the wizardry on you, whether it's in this arena or any other arena for that matter. It will help.
Yes. Yeah, and from what we've found just recently, I don't know whether it's because of the group of people we have and anybody that gets related to Next Level Discord server whenever they go out anywhere, but it seems that whenever we go out and talk to anybody and try and put it down to these simple understandings of all of that, then this is the most important thing. And this is what will normally end an argument, or end not say not an argument, but it will normally end the argument before the argument's even started. If you get into trouble and somebody's trying to obfuscate the initial argument that you were on, you will always be able to come to one of these terms, right? You get somebody to restate whatever their argument is, then find a point where the problem is and see whether you can come to terms with people about that particular problem. And more often than not, that will be the end of the argument. They'll probably say you're silly or something for not understanding what they're talking about. Try and change tack again, go to something else and obfuscate.
Question your education, how intelligent you are. Call you a name or two, you know.
Yeah, so thanks a lot, Raven.
Yeah, good stuff. Really good stuff. The Logos is working, man.
Yeah. Definitions.
Anybody?
Cool.
I was going to say your addition as well was very insightful, Kevin.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good job we had Kevin here.
Yeah, you guys working together. Good stuff, man.
Yeah. Well, it's like Raven said, right? I mean, you can't we're not Aristotle. You can't get this stuff on your own. You've really got to, in fact, even with a group of, what do we got here? 14 people. You can't. It's hard. You got to kind of do it together. You got to reason it out. You need more than one person for that. So, yeah.
We were saying just the other day that it's good that we've got so many individuals here, and I would say that everybody's different, completely different. There's not much similarities, and whenever our discussions come about, they are real discussions. There are people that genuinely don't know, not afraid to say they don't know, and there are people here we can ask and that will be honest and help you if they can, tell you that they can't help you and try and point you in the right direction if they ever can help you. So there's no need for us to come to, let's say, the heated argument that normally occurs. We have the ability to come together as individuals and discuss these things quite well. And I know I'm constantly learning. There never goes a day that I don't learn something from it. And today has been, I think, very good for me. And I thank you, Raven, because I'll be using this. Some of the things I've learned, and I know that will be learned more. It's gonna be good. knowing which arguments to use and how to use them with what type of people and when to use them. And now, knowing the argument that we do know and how to use it, now knowing that we could just use a word and come to terms with that one word. Put the kettle on for us, please. Oh, it's all right. Don't worry. Knowing that we can just come to terms with one word to end an argument like we did tonight. Asking somebody for a definition of straight. And him saying he had 3 different definitions of straight and not able to give us one of them.
Yeah, not able to give us even one, and then coming back and saying, "Oh, you wanted a definition of spherical geometry." No, no, that's not what was asked for. But there you go, the attempt at wizardry, right? Not defining the terms, or not listening to the terms, not parroting back the understanding of what was asked for, because it's not honest.
Instead of answering the question based on its basic concept, they immediately get drawn somewhere else where it gets convoluted.
He knew exactly what he was doing.
Exactly. Yes, indeed. And so did we, right, Rekia? So did we. We knew.
Yeah, that's what it was. He hated the fact that we knew his tactics. That's why he got upset.
And that's a powerful tool, that being able to center in on one word and ask somebody to come to terms over that one word. It's surprising that, because that one word is the one word that doesn't necessarily have a definition. It is elemental, so if you can come to the terms of a word that should be elemental, that's starting the building blocks, and show that the person show to themselves that their starting blocks are nothing. They can't even define the terms of where they're starting, the foundations of an argument.
Hello. Oh, I'm back. I've still got the echo, but I'm back on. I'll have to try and track the echo down from somewhere.
Yeah,
I don't know what's going on.
You've opened an app. I think there's a little bit of an echo or something in the sound, maybe. I don't know.
Keep doing that before the next time. Make sure I'll come on earlier next time and give a mic check and everything.
Practice, yeah. We'll need to take you through the studio rundown.
Yeah, I could do with it.
They were saying they did enjoy your GTA playing the other day, though.
What with all the pedestrian massacre?
Yeah. You're driving.
I'm sorry I missed that. I bet that made a lot less sense than Aristotle's chapter 2.
Yeah.
That's funny.
I don't know. I passed my driving test. The car was covered in blood at the end of it.
Yeah,
I haven't had a chance to get on much. It's just getting the time.
Oh, we've made some big leaps and bounds. We're getting vehicled up. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We're on our way to a property in town.
Did you get your bike back?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And then some. So are we done with, I'm not saying we're done with that, but the actual presentation and anything. So if anybody wants to come in, anybody wants to talk about anything that Raven's done and anything like that, come in. Let's get a chat. We'll open everything up now.
Yep.
Anybody wants to talk about anything, if there's any problems anybody had, now's the time. Come on in, let's talk about it. I like to say, definitely, it's going to help me. But I mean, when I first came into this, I was not a public speaker. I was just I keep saying, a normal bloke, as if I'm any different. I'm no different than what I was when I first came here. But I have trained myself to be able to do this conversation thing, public speaking and all of that. This particular thing, I would have been more confident at doing what I do now had I have had this the basis of the grammar and understanding, because I always thought that was my weak spot. But I guess I had to come to this point that I'm at now to be able to understand the logic behind the grammar and the understanding of how to use the words and how important they are within this thing that we do. Like, you call it a debate, but it's not. It's just conversation and how to converse with each other. Obviously, it's been lost. That art of conversation, the art of talking to each other socially has been taken away from us through text speak. Like somebody said, the English language is probably the biggest one. You may not realize it, but the English language is the text speak of old, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and then think of what we've done since then, right? So the English language being what it is, even on its best of days. And then if you think about social media today and the way that everything is truncated, you've got 144 characters, or now it's double that, right, on Twitter or whatever. And then you've got acronyms that are thrown about, recklessly in some cases. It's just gotten worse and worse and worse. It makes going back to this stuff that we're into now all the more difficult. So it's good that if you're interested in it, it's good that we're doing it now, right? And if nothing else, it'll make you I think it'll make you a better communicator in your everyday life. Talking to your spouse or your kids or anything else, just the idea that words are intentional, right? And which words am I choosing, and am I choosing the right words with the right, and is that person going to understand the definition of what that means? It'll float in your head if you've heard this conversation. It should.
Yeah, being able to have the ability to make your point and the whatever it is you're talking about, to be able to express that with words in the best way possible.
Yep.
To be able to communicate and understanding. Like, one of the best terms is coming to terms, right? Where you both come to the same term. You both understand the meaning of the thing that it is you're talking about together.
And I'll add this in. There's a certain courteousness to that. If you take it at face value, coming to terms, being on the same page, so to speak, with someone you're about to have a conversation with, is in a lot of ways the highest form of courtesy. Because you wouldn't want to intentionally have a misunderstanding, would you, going into a conversation? It wouldn't be your intent necessarily. Might be the intent of some people. But if you're being honest, you really want to have an honest conversation about anything. You wouldn't intentionally want it to, be misunderstood or have misunderstanding. So it's courteous to do these things, to me anyway.
Yeah, and as I always thought that English at school, right, and grammar was the written word. But now coming to understand with trolls and all of that, right, the written word, that's where tricks can be played, right? Because the idea of having, like you said, within and of, well, you can imply different things into text that can be implied, right? There's no way for you to come to terms on a text speak, because to clarify it all would take forever. And you'd keep going round in circles, especially if there was a troll at the other end, where the intention is to run you round in circles. So it's more about the speech, and like in a lot of what I just read, the dialogue or whatever of what it is, tone. Well, you can't put tone into a text, so it's obvious that this is meant to be spoken and communicated. It's not just a written word thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, or in a lot of ways, oration is more important, right? And it's really why a lot of people shy away from VC. When we talk to them all the time in the open chat and the live chat, come on into VC. Oh, no, nope. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder why. Well, a lot of times we know why. It is much easier to play the wizardry with your keyboard than it is with your words vocally.
Yeah. Yes, Ian, this is live. We do this shit live all the time. The ones that not at 8 o'clock will be the ones. Usually they go out before or after. I'm not really doing many of those ones. Although tomorrow I am going to work on some old school stuff concerning a couple of old dudes. See what we can fit together. See whether I can get it done before tomorrow. Geometry night tomorrow. I'm hoping to get a few bits together to explain a simple argument. I'm going to start calling things arguments, because if the idea of an argument is the statement of a logical statement put up for discussion, then just about everything we do is an argument. Whether people want to discuss it or not, I don't know. We were saying that these things that we're doing have to be related somehow to the position we're in. I mean, the position we're in is in some really strange arena. I can't imagine how we've got so many people from different backgrounds and why most of them are in here. Can't for the life of me imagine why Raven's in a place like this and how he ended up here. Same goes for yeah. Same goes for most people.
I can't remember how I got here.
An eclectic mix of all sorts of different people.
I know this is going to sound
I heard
cruel.
on somebody on one of the ballers, not the ballers, one of the flat earther. I think it was Mitchell.
Right.
Somebody you were talking, and something just resonated. So I tracked you down somehow, and then don't know how I got the link to the Discord.
Yep.
What might turn up?
Yeah. Got yourself.
Turn up.
Yep.
I'll have to give him a server mute.
This may sound cruel, but just a question. Say you took two children who never heard or seen the written word, never saw an image, put them on an island by themselves where they were able to sustain themselves, give them everything they need, and they grew. What would the result be? Would they have a spoken language?
That's a very good question.
I'm trying to understand how this all started.
Super good question.
I don't think anybody could answer that.
Well, there is a need to communicate, right?
Yeah, they would definitely make sounds.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, they will communicate, yeah, but will they have a structured language? I believe was the question, right?
Yeah, say by the time they reach mid-age or whatever, would they have a spoken language where they could communicate verbally, other than grunts?
I think they would.
So that must mean that could that mean that we come pre-programmed with something? I mean, a horse gets up and walks in a couple of minutes of birth, right?
Wasn't there an example of a couple of twins that created a complete language between themselves that nobody else understood? I saw something recently about that.
I think there would have to be, right? Because at first, like, these books aren't wrote for no reason. But I mean, if at first there was the word, then that's got to be inherent, right?
Yeah, I agree. I think you can see that just in babies, right? I mean, anyone that's had children or is around children, before they can actually speak whatever language their parents speak, right? They're still vocalizing. So obviously it makes sense in their head to some extent as to what they're vocalizing. So I think absolutely. I think the word is inherent, and it's not necessarily a written word. We talked about this before with vibration and those kinds of things. There's power in that. I think that is definitely inherent, in my opinion.
No one teaches a baby to say mama, right? Like, it just hears it and wants to repeat it, and then figures out, I have a voice, right? I have these sounds that I can make, and I want to form it into saying mama. Does that make sense? Like, how do you teach a baby to say mom? You don't. They just hear it. Then they try and repeat it.
Good point, Rick. Yeah.
That's true.
I was thinking, who taught the mother, the first mother? That's the thought that just came. I know it can't be answered, but think about it. You have the first creation, right? Now, let's say it can't be a baby created, right? Because the baby would die, right? So was an adult created? And if so, who taught that adult?
The creator.
Yeah.
The creator of all things.
It's inherent.
Including language and frequency and sound.
Yep.
Voice and hearing and sight. And when he got angry, right, when the world was fallen, they were trying to reach the heavens. No man will ascend into the heavens. That's why no man's gone to the moon, right? When they tried to build the tower to get into heavens, just like these people are trying to build rockets to get into the heavens, he scattered, he rebuked them, he tore down their tower and sent them off into different lands with different languages so they couldn't communicate. The story adds up, right? It's just another cycle. We're going through it again. The Tower of Babel is just a reference to what we're doing right now. Tower of Evil. Good luck.
Yeah.
If you don't figure it out in time, I mean, right? That's what it is. Can you use your discernment and want to know and spend enough time instead of watching this, and this, you're spending time to try and figure it out so you know before it's too late. That's just my opinion, of course.
If you look at the story of, say, the Tower of Babel, where the language, like they were dispersed and all created different languages to cause confusion and chaos. But isn't that what's happening now? Communication is falling apart. People don't, we're speaking the same language and not speaking the same language at the same time. Nobody
I think
can
so.
communicate.
Yeah, they're saying technology is bringing us closer, but I don't think that. I think it's a division. You see families at a dinner table, a family of five of them are on their phone. None of them are talking to each other. My workers today, when they had a lag in work, like where the concrete trucks weren't coming, they were all sitting at different parts of the farm, sitting on the farm on their phone individually. 30 years ago, we would all been gathered around, a certain spot talking, right? Communicate about a current event or about what happened to us, or no one does that anymore hardly. That's why I like this group. Logos has brought us together to communicate, learn how to communicate, learn how to spot the people who are trying to deceive us in so many ways, and then go out into the real world and teach others.
You're right. Somebody would have pulled out a football and started throwing a football around during that lifetime. They wouldn't have been sitting around looking at a screen.
Dude, I wish I would have taken a snapshot. You see it all the time. Eight guys on one, concrete pour, and when the concrete stopped coming, they all went to their individual spots, sat down, and put their head in the phone. That's not communication.
That's scary, actually.
Yeah, go walk in any restaurant and watch how many cell phones are out, and anywhere.
I do see it.
And look on the back of that cell phone. It's the bit and apple, I think. The iPhone, right? Me, myself, I. Well, what is the creator's word, right? Logos teaches us that, we shouldn't be, it's an individual walk, but we should do it as a whole. We're all connected in that way. So every time you think of self, iPhone, selfie, and the bit and apples on there's just too many coincidences. The black cube, if you want to go there. Yeah. But about sophistry earlier, you have to be careful that you're not, we're all guilty of it, right?
Yeah.
So learning about it is a way to protect yourself from doing it.
And having people around you, right?
Absolutely.
If you do this solo, you are so at danger of paralogisms, sophistry, all sorts of flaws within arguments will be done if you are on your own.
Well, that's what I was saying about an individual walk, but you got to have people doing the same thing around you to point out when you fall short. Mm-hmm. So you don't get lost. Don't take that turn. Don't go there, right? Don't talk like that. So you stay on your path of what I call righteousness, but it's salvation. Your path of truth, your path of spreading the truth and avoiding deception and exposing deception. Without that, who cares? I mean, what else would there be?
It's interesting. It's interesting that you say that. I was at the mall earlier today, and there was this group of people, a lady with, I think 4 or 5 mentally handicapped people, and she was asking this one young man, what are the 4 things you don't ask women? And he had to repeat it for her. Are you pregnant? What's your weight? And she would acknowledge that he was correct. How old are you, or stuff like that. And it just goes along with what you were saying. This is how we teach each other. Great stuff, Rekia.
I'm like Bev, right? Just an individual. I'm driving home from work right now, but this is within us. People choose, right? Free will. Have a choice on who to hang around, who to be friends with, who to marry, how to act, what to say, why, when to say it. And it's those choices which bring you closer or further apart from the truth. Now, in my faith, truth is the creator. That's the baseline, right? Of all truth. He created everything. He is truth. That's the baseline. So the closer I get to truth, the closer I get to creation, to the creator. And in my faith, I hope that brings me eternal life where I just have, I'm just here to achieve that. Without that, I don't know what the purpose would be. Right? To fill space, to breathe air. What, can you name a purpose?
Well, that's why the scripture says, "Prove all things and hold fast that which is good." I
Which
think
is good. No, that's close. Yeah. Yep. Eyes to hear, eyes to see, ears to hear. I mean, there's passages all over the place of things we're talking about. You can't really say anything logically or get into a situation that the Bible doesn't clearly express most of the time in several different, spots, which will give clarity to you if you're willing to accept it. You don't have to accept it as end all be all, but just you can't. If you deny it, then you're just in denial. I mean, and when they twist the words and take that as and if, and of course there's things he say, as a goat, I flew around or whatever. Yeah, the stories are there because so you can relate. These are ordinary people. These are fishermen. These are caregivers. These are carpenters. So the ordinary person can relate to what they went through and the stories that they told and wrote down through the inspiration of the creator. I mean, I don't know why I've moved away from using God because, it's such a, the creator makes more sense to me. He's my, the creator is my God. It's just the way it is. That's just where I choose, right? Choice again, right? I don't have to force that on you, but if you're going to deny the creator, you're the one with the issue, man. You just need to get yourself, straightened out and get on the right path. Because you show me someone that denies the creator, I'll show you someone that's quick to anger and on a Discord, voluntarily there, will get so triggered they'll want to drown somebody in a bay.
Or
you understand
worse.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or worse, or put a gun to somebody's head, or send a pitcher out trying to do harm to a family trying to make a living, right? Let the hate out, right? Who's trolling?
What can evoke that strong of an emotion?
Yeah, death is a huge part, right? Like of everybody's life. So, but they use it as attack. But who's trolling who?
Well, see, I think there's a lot of jealousy involved in that as well, right? It's that vitriol and stuff that comes like that. That's to hide a jealousy, I think. Certain times. It's not... If you don't like somebody, then you don't do that sort of stuff. You literally don't care. There has to be another reason to do it. I think.
I think the spirit leads them, right? I just truly believe in the good and evil. So that's where I go to. I can see it in myself. I'm not in denial here, right? I'm not perfect. I have good and evil in me. I hear it. I see it. So why wouldn't I think it's in someone else? I'm being honest with myself. Right, exactly. So I know the person around me and on the opposite end of the argument has good and evil in him or her also. Why wouldn't they? They're the same as me. We're equal. When they say bottom of the barrel, what they're trying to tell you is I think of myself at such a low self-esteem that I have to put you even lower to just make myself feel better and justify the hate that I'm spewing out. It's obnoxious. I think I've read my daily.
Yeah. I think you're right, Ricky. Yeah.
I think I've read my daily reading. Let's see, let me say this one thing. I'm gonna go on mute because I'm fixing to get into a bad area.
Yeah.
It was something about yeah, here it is. I read this every day. I should know it by heart, but I just didn't want to mess it up. Truth, right, which is where we're all trying to get to, without love, which is love is a very broad term, but truth without that passion, that you're doing it for goodness, right? You're not doing it for evil, is obnoxious, and the deliverer is repulsive. Now, if that reminds you of me sometimes, I truly apologize because I know I'm that way sometimes. But think about, who comes to mind that first time you think of that? Who repulses when that, it's just crazy.
I was thinking of Gems and me visiting there when you said that.
Yeah, it's a good place. You can definitely find it there. But, you can find it in yourself too. So that's why you don't judge, but it's just, you can go as deep as you want with all that. It's your own individual walk. But like I said, we're all in it together. If you think we're not connected in some way, whew, you haven't been try thinking, right? You're connected. It's amazing how many times you just think something. I think David Weiss really stresses this. Everything you've done or thought of, when you think of something, it usually happens. The way you think, if you're negative or positive or blah blah blah. I see that. But great, these talks right here are what's missing in the world, I think. Those campfire talks, those job site, we call them cooler talks. Everybody would gather around the water cooler, right?
You ever find yourself do you ever find you asking yourself, where does this thought come from? Why am I even thinking this? No, really?
No, I mean, dude,
all his thoughts come to me, and I'm saying, why the hell am I even thinking this? Where did this come from?
Yeah, and it goes back to good and evil. I have really great, thoughts of doing good things, and I have evil thoughts sometimes. Like, it's I can't like not tell the truth there, right? I think it's in everyone. It's the action that you take is what makes you, or the forgiveness, or the, when you ask for forgiveness and who you ask forgiveness to. Where do you turn when you have trouble? This morning I had a flat tire. It was really the worst time to have a flat tire. I had 9 things to do. I had a lot of people depending on me, 3 or 4 different jobs going at one time. And I had a flat tire. I didn't cuss and fuss and blah, blah, blah. I just kind of got quiet, settled myself, asked for forgiveness basically for that little time that I did think of just raising, like getting mad, and turn, please help me through this situation. I know there's a reason this tire is flat right now. What is it? Let's try and, focus on that.
Possibly prevented you from an accident if you had left it on time. Possibly.
Telling you to slow down a bit.
Or that.
Take a bit of time. Yeah. It could be anything, right? But the idea that you actually thought about it and thought, what's the, wait, why is this happening? Because a lot of people would get overridden by the annoyance of things not going the way that they planned it. But that, I find, quite often the lesson. Somebody's trying to tell you that you perhaps shouldn't be stressing out too much. I like to think the idea of what you call God, I think of the Logos. It's always there, right? Whatever it was that brought it around, it's still there. Spot On was doing a thing earlier about Wilhelm, I think it was. And that was similar, it's the whatever is there that gives you those ideas and puts those words and things in your head, gives you those things, and that thing that you talk to. That's what you need to connect with, I think. But I mean, again, that can sound weird, can't it?
Well, no, because I know there are things that have happened in my life that I can't explain any other way. I may not be here if it wasn't for some kind of intervention.
Yeah.
So I have to believe there's something else going on for sure. For sure.
I truly believe in I don't know what you want to call it, the Logos, the Creator, God. I don't really matter what name you give it. But there's something, there's times in my life when you are connected with something so far greater than yourself, and everything flows, and you just know you're on the right path. And then you have periods where things aren't going so well, and you have to. And if you can get those moments where you can just trust that things, are meant to be whatever meant to be. So I'm with all of you on that one. I think there's definitely the Logos.
It's not done me wrong yet. Logos. I've lived by the Logos for quite a while. Probably the best thing for me to calm down, chill out. But yeah,
you were telling me tonight when I couldn't get my computer to work. Chill out. I've got a thing here saying that there's 2 apps using your microphone, but it won't tell me which 2.
Well, Discord will definitely be one of them.
Yeah. How do I find the other one?
Go into your settings on the audio and see what. I can't remember how to do that.
It's been a long time since I've been messing about inside Windows.
Go to settings, audio, and it should show you what's on there.
Right, I've got microphone. See if I can find it.
Sound. No, I can't. I'm no good at anything like that.
Get me lad.
No,
get me lad on it tomorrow.
Yeah, that's how you do it.
That's how you do it. Absolutely right.
There's somebody else to do it for you.
Logos in action.
That's it.
Let's see, what time is it? It's 11 o'clock. Does anybody want anything? Well, I think we'll end it. We'll go to an after hours. Anybody got anything else to say? A recap tonight? I'd like to say thanks to Raven. And we are definitely going to have more of these. I think the general idea of what we're doing, obviously we're being left alone. There's a group of people that can't talk to us, so the conversation's going to be around our group, and there are things that I would rather us not talk about, so we will have to do that after hours. I'd rather not give away most of our secrets live.
Yeah,
little tricks of the trade that we have. And
I'd like to second that. Thanks, Raven, very much. That was an excellent
I'd
presentation.
like to thank everybody for their patience.
I'm really enjoying these shows, and you piqued my interest so much I can't even explain it. And I'd like to thank Kevin for his input. It was also
that's fantastic input tonight.
Very well done. And everyone else on the panel, thank you all. Good show. Thank you.
Yeah, really good tonight.
Anybody got any but oh wait a minute, tomorrow geometry night. I think Euclid, I'm gonna have to try and do the straight line thing again, but I'll try and do a little bit of a video thing. I'll try and sort something. I don't know whether I will be able to or not.
I can already hear the triggering from now.
Yeah, it will. I'll try and explain once again the water level test, which is a straight line geometric test, and I'll try and do it as simply as I can, but obviously it's one of those things that we're going to have to keep doing over and over until I can get it down. Pretty much like all of these presentation things. There is a best way of being able to present any of the things we're talking about. Using the right words all come into play now. Thanks, Raven. Another thing that we have to now look at is all the words and the formulation of the words and how it gets presented, and now we're leading on to the rhetoric and how those words are put together to express everything. So if anybody's got anything that they think that might help for us to implement in the way we can present things to make them better, come in and let us know. That's what we're all about, making things more simple to understand.
Is the water in the tube or of the tube?
Yeah.
Is it predicable?
Right, anybody got any Buster song we would like to hear? Or... I did add that new one, but we've already had that today. I will be making many more Buster cuts and mixes.
I would say both. The water is in the tube and of the tube, because it took water to make the tube. No?
It never answered your question about the kid at school. He's of the school and in the school, did they?
Yeah.
I was waiting to hear that. Or Kevin, rather, sorry.
Those are two different things, because you can be of the school, meaning part of the school, right?
Right.
And you can be in the school, meaning you're in the school.
Physically. Right.
Physically, yes.
Interesting.
I'm passing a school right now. Am I in it or of it?
Neither. Well, unless you went.
Neither. Yeah.
Did you go to that school before?
No, I played baseball and football at the school.
Oh, that's another dimension now.
I was part of it then.
Yeah, you can say you were part of. Yeah.
I mean, I've left blood and skin and emotions, and
you were of the school.
Yeah. You were in it, literally.
I'm part of that school now, or it's part of me.
Well, you were in it at one point, and of it. Now you were of it.
Was it this weekend? It's Wednesday now, the 20th. Is it this weekend, the fabled meetup at the university? Yeah.
I'm leaving Friday.
Yeah.
I'll be there till next Friday. Friday to Friday, I'll be in Tennessee. Go Vols.
Nice. Well, I think they
Go
were recording.
Vols and Blues Balls. Oh, really?
Yeah.
I need to drop a dime over to UT, see if they're actually having it. No one ever got back to me.
Right, I'm going to shut out for the night. I don't know why, but somebody's requested Brenda. So anybody wants to know? I think it's Tommy. Yeah, it was Buster Brenda tune. So thanks for watching, listening, whatever, and we'll see you tomorrow, Euclid night.
So Euclid is a fantasy model. Bev is model afflicted.
Well, it's wrong.
Wait, Euclid is a fantasy model. Have you read the book? It's called Euclid's Elements. That's really good. You should give it a look.
Well, it's wrong.
Yeah, well, probably one of the most perfect books ever wrote.
Well, it's wrong
as well.
Well, it's wrong.
What, Euclid's Elements are wrong?
No, it's wrong, isn't it?
I don't know. You say it's wrong. Like you've
Well,
just
on
said
a
it
surface-
three or four times there. But how is
Yeah.
it wrong? You just say in that Euclid's Elements is wrong. Euclidean geometry is wrong. Brenda.
Right.
This is getting old, Brenda. I mean, come on. You've got to do better than that. How you're not going to sell many globes talking like that.
It's wrong.
Yep.
It's wrong because in the presence of gravity, space is non-Euclidean.
Hyperbolic geometry is not the same, right, as reality.
Okay, well, that's good.
However,
you did say it was in reality, though. So where would you find that?
It's a better description of reality than
Well,
Euclid.
it's wrong.
It's better.
What?
Do you have like the book on hyperbolic geometry with the author's name and all the definitions and axioms and all, or do you just add it on as book 16 to Euclid? Like, what's going on?
Well, it's wrong.
So general relativity. So Euclid is a fantasy. So Euclid is a fantasy. That is model afflicted.
Wait, Euclid is a fantasy model. Have you read the book? It's called Euclid's Elements. That's really good. You should give it a look over.
Well, it's wrong.
So Euclid is a fantasy model.
That's child abuse.
Please don't be model afflicted like Brenda.
That's child abuse. That's child abuse.
You are model afflicted.
Euclid is fantasy.
That's child abuse.
But space-time geometry is real. Wow, Brenda, you outdid yourself.
I have in my imagination land, try to focus. If I use Euclidean geometry,
that's child abuse.
Describe reality. I have in my imagination land, which is real.
It's inherent in nature.
Well, it's wrong.
It's not my problem if you don't want to learn. You just don't.
I don't understand the doublespeak. I don't understand the contradictions.
I'm not sure that I would call myself a diletheist. I don't understand diletheism, because that's what logic is.
Yeah, absolutely foundational, right?
And there are different logics with different axioms. Well, it's by imagination, so I can just bend it in my imagination. I'm not sure that I would call myself a diletheist. I don't understand diletheism. Well, it's by imagination, so I can just bend it in my imagination.
Can you explain to us why they disagree?
That's child abuse. That's child abuse.
Because it turns out I can just bend it in my imagination. Space-time is non-Euclidean.
Well, it's wrong.
Euclidean.
Yeah.
One of Kant's well-known mistakes.
It's not my problem that you don't want to learn. You just on your own.
Well, if the current, so if the plane is saddle-shaped, so I can just bend it in my imagination. If the plane if you bend it, make it saddle-shaped, then
It's not a plane then, Brenda.
You think things are doublespeak, but that's because you don't understand. Well, if the plane is curved, so I can just bend it in my imagination. If the plane is saddle-shaped, if the plane if you bend it, make it saddle-shaped, then
It's not a plane then, Brenda.
Is that
This is getting old, Brenda. I mean, come on. You've got to do better than that. How you're not going to sell many globes talking like that?
So I can just bend it in my imagination. It's obvious to
Up
everybody.
your game, Brenda.
No, I have.
You're meant to be an expert at this. Aren't you? Aren't you one of the best?
No, so I can just bend it in my imagination. Well known mistakes.
Well, it's wrong.
I just understand.
It's wrong.
It's inherent in nature.
That's
a quote. That's
what it is. They need Euclidean geometry to do all their stolen concept shit.
No reason, no logic, no wisdom, no worry.
As a front.
You're just on your own.
But in the back, they're doing their magic globe shit.
No logic, no answers to question.
Their magic globe shit.
You're just on your own.
Yes, that's what logic is.
Yeah, absolutely foundational, right?
And there are different logics with different axioms.
Reality, yeah.
It's inherent in nature. That's a quote.
Transcendental, relating to the spiritual realm.
You read the second one, that's interesting.
Kantian philosophy. Is that what you're after? You like a bit of Kant? Presupposed and unnecessary to experience a priori. I've heard QE say that a lot. Is that a better way of saying it? A priori?
Oh, Immanuel Kant introduced that kind of language. Well, actually, people have been talking about it before that, but he was the big man in the block.
The old philosopher.
Come to find out, that quote that I just spoke. It's inherent in nature.
Oh, was it?
Ah, yeah.
No way. Kant said that Euclidean geometry was what's that?
It's inherent in nature. Inherent in nature. Yeah.
Well, it's wrong.
That's a tough
many
one.
people seem to quote Kant or whatever to saying that reality is obviously and clearly Euclidean.
Yeah,
that's child abuse. That's child abuse.
One of Kant's well-known mistakes.
Because I do actually teach my son geometry. So when you say we,
yeah, that's child abuse.